All right. I almost got my eardrums blasted yet again, but thank you very much for being here. Who is again that uses this? Who uses this one? Good Lord, Kimberly. We got to test her earring. Earring or hearing?
Oh, you're struggling.
Yeah, I'm not on it. Not on it. All right, take a moment to smash that like button, please. And if you have not been alerted from the We the People podcast network, please let us know, because we need to make sure that the alert is already set up for your either Facebook Live or YouTube Live. But we are glad to have you here. We have an exciting, another exciting podcast tonight, where we are here to change history and inform everyone of what the hell is going on in this world today. We're going to talk about stuff that you talk about amongst your friends anyways with drinks, and we're going to do that over a drink. So salud, everybody here.
Cheers.
That's a lot that you got in that cup.
Yeah, it's water. All right.
Vodka, boy.
Yeah, God. No.
Jose's in trouble. City council must be
All right.
stressing you out.
Let me tell you about city council for a minute here.
Let's
I
go.
saw you didn't even put up. Oh man, can we even look it up? Did you see that one of the council members said that our black mayor was perpetuating white supremacy because we wanted to give money to our police officers to for mental health evaluation and help with understanding that, hey, you're going through some stuff. Let's talk about this, because this stuff can weigh on you. Literally, all the stuff that BLM was saying, hey, your police officers don't know how to handle the emotional stress of being police officers, and they're taking it out on our people. Okay, cool. Got you. This is what we're going to do. We're going to invest in mental health support. And then they said, you are perpetuating white supremacy to our black mayor and majority black city council.
Well,
it passed with flying colors.
98% of the people is running the city is black. So I don't understand that white supremacy joint is getting kind of old.
I can't. It's always a race thing.
Yeah,
that's what really bothers me. I'm Latino. Why does it always come down to race?
Hey,
when it happens to be?
Wait, you Puerto Rican? When'd you become Puerto Rican?
Latinx.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. That's the default for everything. That's the default for everything.
It's because the elections are coming up. This year is the state elections. Yeah, state elections this year. So we're talking about governor, state assembly, and state senate, all coming up for election this year. And we've seen in the past, yesterday, yeah. Oh man, I didn't put this on here either. Where the Supreme Court of the state said that the mandates for mask mandates that the governor put out, nah, bro, you can't do that. Unconstitutional. You can't do that without going through the proper process. Like, this is why we have checks and balances. And the entire time I was saying this is illegal. They can't mandate this.
Well, we were talking about it in the text. Remember when Hochul came out with it? What was it? December 31st. She said it's going to be 2 weeks, right? Kind of reminds you of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then all of a sudden, I think it was January 15th, they said they were going to reevaluate it. Yeah, it came and went. You got to search on Google or wherever your preferred search engine is to find anything about that reevaluation.
Yeah.
It came and went, and we're just going to continue it.
Well, because the people, the majority of the folks in New York State has bought into the fear. Right. So they can literally say, like, it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says. They said it's unconstitutional. That's all you need to know.
And the fact that they're still fighting it.
They're still fighting. Right. The Attorney General said
your tax money to fight it.
Yes, the Attorney General said, we're doing this to protect you.
Nah, we good.
Even though, and I think that's the most egregious part, where your Attorney General, who will look at a Supreme Court decision and say the Supreme Court judge said it's unconstitutional. Our Attorney General disagreed.
But we're gonna continue to implement it because on the intent to appeal. Yeah, right?
But we're doing it for your We're doing it for your safety.
That's not your job. See, this is the thing that people need to understand. When you get elected, you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and of the state of New York. You do not swear to uphold and defend the right to freaking control what we put in our bodies or the health of us and our children. That is not your job. The government's job is not to take care of my health.
Not according to Kelly the Ho. Kelly Hope and our Attorney General, what's her name? Letitia?
Tisha James?
Tisha James said, we gonna do this to protect y'all. We gonna keep y'all safe and make you wear these masks. How can you mandate something and literally believe that it's for their own good?
Right. We're getting into the conversation we're gonna have with our guest here.
You know,
so
listen, you already know, Jose. Like when these issues come up, we can't.
We are the voice of reason in this state.
Yeah,
seriously, we are the voice of reason in this entire state.
That's alarming.
Yo, but listen, Austin's able to go back and take a bunch of clips of what we said within the past and just how today, yesterday, vindicate, that was the day before yesterday when it first came out, like the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it came out 2 nights in the evening.
Yo, I felt like
I called my kids
Rocky.
School.
Oh my god!
You saw my video. I was like, oh man, I
told my daughter, I was like, hey, the mask is unconstitutional. You don't gotta wear no mask anymore, but come to find out,
as soon as they got out of school,
the school's like, no. What Constitution? What is that? No, we're still gonna make you guys wear masks. We don't teach you the Constitution in school anyway. So
who gave them this power?
The New York State Education, Department.
That's just like
apparently
it literally is just like if you said everyone has to wear what's called a hijab.
Face covering.
Yeah, like every female has to wear a hijab.
Oh, they wouldn't go for that shit.
Hell no, they wouldn't.
I mean,
they can't take selfies.
They kind of
with that
double
shit.
as a COVID mask.
Real. I'd rather wear that than freaking COVID mask. Anyways, let's get into the news of the past week because I can get into this all day, and we're going to get into this actually all evening with our guests here. Not yet.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna bring up Cawthorn,
chill,
my boy in the wheelchair. That's not all he is. He's a good guy. I follow him on social media. It says Cawthorn challenge raises the question: who is an insurrectionist? All right, the challenge to Representative Madison Cawthorn's re-election bid could set a precedent to challenge other Republicans who encouraged the January 6th attack. All right, so let's talk about number one: what is an insurrectionist? And number two, who encouraged the January 6th attack? Because I didn't see anything anywhere where it said, hey, break into this building and sit barefoot on someone's seat. Like, again, I'm not trying to minimize what that was. It was messed up. Like, that was not the best idea. You don't break into the Capitol building, but big but.
Lizzo.
Yes,
not really.
But I know of a recent film actor who has killed more people than the January 6th.
I know you ain't bringing Alec Baldwin into this.
I didn't want to say him by name.
Oh,
he killed more people than the January 6th insurrectionists who are still in prison.
Without a trial.
Who have still not been able to talk to their freaking attorneys.
I don't know if you guys have been following a lot of these liberals that have been speaking out or been, piggybacking off this January 6th insurrection that took place, right? They've been real hard on this domestic terrorist shit. So this is a perfect opportunity for them to continue that, that story that we have so many domestic terrorists here in this country that our CIA and our FBI has to ramp up.
They're the insurrection. The FBI is the worst.
Yeah, well, FBI and CIA. You know what I mean?
All the above.
Well, how many countries does CIA have, infiltrated and influenced and
they play a role, right? They play a role when we need them. They play the role that they're supposed to play.
I watch Homeland. I already know.
But the FBI seems to be involved in a lot of things that should not be involved with, like Project Veritas, going through their homes and taking their cell phones and finding out what their conversations are between them and their attorneys. Like, that's messed up.
They've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, they have. J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar
Hoover, Mr. Let me get some black informants and turn them against their own people, like the Black Panther Party, or let's get Reverend Al Sharpton in and be a little informant as well, huh?
Would you have been that guy that went against your Black Panther party?
Nah, you have to kill me, dog.
Yeah, it's messed up.
I ain't no punk ass bitch.
So this is what they're doing. This is the election year. This is what they're doing, right? They're going to make it either a race thing or a Republican who backed the insurrectionists.
Yeah.
Like this was a year ago. A year ago. What did they actually do? Honestly, what did they actually do?
Same thing. Actually did it.
Like one
Not much.
1/100th of what BLM did all of 2020.
Yeah. What about Portland? What about Seattle?
What about
Pick a
Rochester?
city. What about Rochester?
What about
Right.
Rochester?
Oh, we talked about
Just
that.
on one street in Rochester, they did more than the Capitol building.
Yeah.
So why are we still talking about this? Why is this still a thing?
Somebody's paying a lot of money to keep these to create these situations, man.
Yeah.
It seems too well organized. It seems too aligned to one party.
Right.
And then to create this sentiment against another party.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of one party versus the other, let's bring up the SCOTUS. The SCOTUS. There we go. Yeah. My notes are in the way here. All right.
Wait, hold on.
His name is not Will Manchin. It's
You got to be careful when you put these articles up, because when you put them up, like I'm drinking and I'm literally almost spat over everything. So
that
gotta
sounds
warn
like
me.
a personal problem.
It is.
All right. Just want to make sure you were aware of that. I'm not quite sure what we can do. What can you do about that?
They make pills for that.
They're funny as hell, man. Like these headlines be bugging me out.
Well, I do search for the funnier ones, to be honest. And this one says Will Manchin and Cinema block Biden's Supreme Court nominee. All right, so Biden is about to get a Supreme Court nominee. He's fine. The Democrats are finally going to be able to put somebody in there after, a few years of President Donald Trump just land a conservative smackdown.
Thank God. This country would be over by now.
We didn't deserve
I am going to say if we didn't have the majority of our Supreme Court conservative, we may be
screwed.
We may be Australia.
Yo, thank God for Clarence Thomas. Like, yo, if he didn't get the nomination that sexual harassment
conservative
charge,
black guy.
Yeah, a very good one too.
Conservative black man.
He's a very, very good
so
judge.
you're saying he's white?
Well, he's the
according to
he's the black face of white supremacy.
Yeah.
I will say this from my transition of,
Please tell me about your
being
transition.
a black.
I was trying to look forward to this one.
A black.
We got a doctor here if you want some help.
My awareness of the political realm and just being more aware of how
has grown on this podcast alone.
Right.
I know.
I've come a long way, and I will tell you, they did a really good job of turning the minds of blacks against Clarence Thomas right from the very beginning.
Yeah,
right through the media and the whole situation through a sexual harassment charge. They put the black woman up against the black man, and it had absolutely nothing
and
to do
Dr.
with
Carlson
had nothing to do with his ability to be a Supreme Court judge. And if that didn't, if that would have went the other way, we literally could be, like you said, Australia.
Yeah, easily. And then the next article here says Biden made a campaign pledge to put a black woman on the Supreme Court.
Such a fucking.
It's the same thing with Kamala there. That's what you get when you go on gender and race versus merit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How is that a good idea? So if a black woman's the best candidate, great. If they're not, and you're passing over other candidates just for
equity reasons.
Equity.
Does Thurgood Marshall name ring a bell to anybody?
Never heard of him.
I don't think Thurgood Marshall ever had. I don't think he was appointed off of we need to throw a bone to the black folks. Like, if he was alive today,
was this the MLK dream he had?
I don't even think. I think he was there before that. I mean, Thurgood Marshall was around for a long ass time. When was he elected? Yeah. I mean, when was he nominated? Regardless of that, they weren't there. The country wasn't in this BLM phase. Wasn't in this.
Is it a phase?
Let's throw a bone to black people just because I'm old, senile, and I'm just losing in the polls.
And equity.
I'm so sick of that word.
You're telling me.
Yeah,
you're telling me.
Oh.
But we see here that he made a campaign pledge. Tell me one campaign pledge that Biden has kept. Name me one. Just name me one.
Well, he's gonna end the virus. That didn't happen. He's gonna shut down the virus. We're Jose, it's not fair. We've only gone a year.
He did say that he had a plan, and his plan has failed miserably.
Hey man,
come on.
Listen. Listen.
Let's talk about another white guy. Let's talk about another white guy whose plans failed miserably. Let's pull up Neil Young here. This
Oh
idiot.
yeah, poor guy.
He
Poor guy.
demands. He demands. Why is Edna calling me? My wife is calling me.
Mm-mm.
I can take this.
Oh,
So
shoot,
Neil
what'd
Young
you do?
demands that
Yeah.
Spotify take his music off, or if they don't take Joe Rogan off of Spotify. And you know what Spotify said? They said
You take this.
we'll take Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Neil Young, who
I didn't know who Neil Young was until yesterday.
that's fair.
Yeah, I swear to God.
He's past his prime. I mean, can we throw our doctor on here?
Yes,
little
please.
preview. Did you know who Neil Young was?
Oh, sure. I'm
Okay.
old though. I'm
Okay.
55. I grew up on 60s and 70s rock and roll.
You might be the cutoff of people that are, know who Neil Young is.
Are we bringing him on? Bring him on.
Sure. Why don't you
can talk
introduce
about
him?
the?
Jose?
Sure.
You can
I
talk
know.
about the next articles
know-
too here.
You know this. You must know the song "Heart of Gold." Keep me searching for a
Bro,
heart of
I have
gold.
no idea who
You
Neil
gotta
Young
play
is,
it.
and
I
I don't
gotta
understand
get to
who
the hook.
any of this
All right,
music
You got to
is.
get to the hook, man. Nah.
That was "Hey Hey My Rock and Roll Will Never Die."
Dude, good lord.
Nah.
I'm too.
Well, that's why they took
I'm too
Rogan.
tan for this.
That's why it's like. That's why Spotify was like, Neil Young,
No, goodbye.
YouTube Music got you. Don't worry.
But
They
so,
removed him immediately.
so they wanted Neil Young wanted
It's fantastic.
to remove Joe Rogan because of all this vaccine misinformation.
Yo, they better
Um,
leave Joe Rogan.
How
alone.
old is Neil Young? I'm sorry. How old was he?
He's got to be 75. Right?
76.
All right, he's
I saw
he's
it.
in a different stratosphere of concern regarding COVID than Joe Rogan or any of us here. He's in a different stratosphere of concern.
But yet he voted for the 80-year-old who is more susceptible of dying of COVID tomorrow.
True.
Like, I
Very
mean,
much so.
I'm surprised Biden is still alive because COVID is so bad, right? It's so fucking bad. Why is Biden still leading the charge? Hey, follow me.
The same reason.
Americans.
The same reason why Magic Johnson's still alive.
Nah, son. Nah, that's different. That's different. That's different. Magic.
You got to
listen,
grind up $100 bills. in your
Yo,
pocket.
my thing on that HIV thing is the same with this COVID thing. The same guy was leading the charge
I
back
was gonna get
then.
to that at some point.
Fauci was leading the charge back then. How can you believe anything that hey, listen. Go down to the corner. Joe's Pizza Shop. They got vaccines down there. N95 masks.
This is a pretty good.
Fauci.
pretty
I'm not
good
gonna lie.
Fauci
I'm not
voice.
gonna lie. Yeah.
Right, he's made some pretty
N95s.
bad ones before.
You can wear your mask. You can wear your mask and make sure you get condoms for your AIDS because it only
No,
affects.
he said that kids can get AIDS when they're among their family members in their homes.
Wow, he said it back then.
He said it back then.
Wow, nobody was listening to that
so,
shit, huh?
You know how Jose said, things that we've said in the past, they age
Right.
well. Things
Yep.
that the left says, that Fauci says in particular, they do
Oh,
not
they
age
don't,
well.
They don't.
Not
But
at all.
people forget.
And they still ride with this guy.
Quickly.
If you've got to pay $3.50 for gas and you're worried about putting food on the table, you don't care what they said 2 weeks ago.
So here's my question to a doctor, physician, right? When you hear,
Did I actually introduce him? I didn't introduce him.
I don't know, you should do that,
I
though.
thought we did already, but
My
yeah,
bad.
let's do
You
that
guys brought
because
him in.
I want to know.
I thought my wife was
I-
calling me for like an emergency. I get back
She
there to
forgot.
call. Oh, disregard. I'm like, what do you mean disregard?
Oh, she
You know what that
fired
means?
for that.
She's not
Tell
watching
her
the podcast.
She
That's what
know
that
it.
means.
Oh, okay.
She's not watching it. She thinks I'm at the bar.
Oh.
Dr. Clayton Baker, MD-CM practicing physician, board certified internist.
Yes. So my question, when you
Ask the
listen
doctor the
to
question.
when you listen to people like Dr. Fauci during
Mhm.
this whole entire, pandemic situation, and they say things like, I think we're gonna have to move to 2 masks, because 2 masks can keep you a little bit more safer. I mean, if you think about it, it's extra double protection, like Wrigley's gum. It lasts for extra long time. Like when you hear that, you be like, this stupid motherfucker is getting paid
Was that a pretty good?
millions.
I thought it was pretty good.
I
would say
I'm
a
here all
couple-
night, folks.
I would say a couple things in response to that. A lot of people don't know who Fauci really is.
Mm.
And one thing about Fauci is that he's been at the NIH, specifically in his division there, the NIAID, since 1968. 1968 is the year of the Tet Offensive. It's the year before Woodstock.
That's before
any of us were
Biden
born?
got into politics.
Exactly. It's a
God.
half century ago. Now, he doesn't see patients
Ever.
He hasn't seen patients probably since he joined the NIH, but certainly not since long after. So he hasn't seen patients since 50 years ago. So the drugs that are in use in the last 25, 30 years, he's never prescribed.
I equate this, you know what I equate this to? I was in the military. I equate this to a, lieutenant colonel or even a freaking general that says, this is what we're going to do. And then like a sergeant, like I was a deployment sergeant. So when we went on deployment, I was the NCOIC. I was the NCO in charge of our deployments. What I said fucking went, right? I wrote the SOP for our deployments. Like I was top notch. I'm not going to pat myself on the shoulder, but I was top notch. So there were people back then when they were brass, they would come around and say, we're going to do this, that, and the other. And I would have to say, excuse me, sir. Here's the SOP that I wrote. If you want to change things up, that's fine. I will support. But I just want to make sure you're aware of what it looks like on the ground, wherever we were going, Colombia. This is what it looks like on the ground. I know you're making decisions from, San Antonio, Texas, but in Colombia, this is what it looks like on the ground. It is what we have to do on a daily basis.
Are you talking about Colombia? Colombia?
I wasn't on camera.
They have a lot of yayo in Colombia. That Colombia.
Oh
shoot! That's why they picked you.
But that's to me, it blew me away that a top collar freaking brass would try and determine what we should be doing in a land that they've never been to, on the ground level where they've never been on.
Absolutely.
And so Fauci is that.
So you're both of your instincts, if I may say this, and I'm not trying to butter you up.
Ooh, go ahead, do it.
No.
I need it. I don't. I have low self-esteem.
Don't need no butter on.
I have low self-esteem.
That's a white people condiment.
I resemble that remark.
Along with mayonnaise.
That's right.
Oh, geez.
But seriously, your instincts are, in my opinion, are spot on. So this is not somebody that takes care of patients. This is not somebody who has any idea how to take care of patients. This is not somebody that prescribes medicine.
I'll say, has he ever prescribed anything?
He shouldn't have if he did, because he doesn't have an active practice. And so, but people just take it on faith that he knows what he's talking about. And he doesn't. And that's why it sounds so ridiculous, because he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. Here's one of the things I'll say about masks, just all told. I don't care how good, bad, or indifferent the mask type is that you're wearing. If you're not wearing it properly, it will do you zero good.
Zero, not like 1%.
I mean, well, if you can say that an N95 is X% better than another mask and another mask, if you don't have people, if you're doing any kind of study and you're not keeping close track of how they're wearing it, the quality of your results is going to be poor. And it's not going to be, even if you do it well in the study, it's not going to be translatable to the real world when people aren't using them properly.
Where they're touching it.
Right, exactly. So once you get to that point, now I don't do surgery now, but I've been in many operating rooms.
Internal medicine,
but I did, surgery throughout my training and for a little while afterwards. And throughout my training and a tiny bit afterwards. But if you touched your mask in an operating room, the scrub nurse says, "Hey doctor, you need to change your gloves right now." Okay.
Gloves or mask?
Well, if you break sterility, if you do the wrong thing, if you notice it yourself, you say, "Oh gosh, I'm not sterile. I got to fix it." And if you don't, a good scrub nurse is going to pick that right up. That's how you control. And that's in a very controlled setting to begin with.
Right.
In an uncontrolled setting, like the real world,
right. Like everywhere else.
This stuff, it's really at best highly questionable, and at worst an absolute farce to say that this mask is going to work at this percentage or what have you. Now, for example, with kids, kids are a mask on a kid is the only way you can measure whether a mask on a kid is working is if you do population studies. So you basically say, and they did this in Florida. This is interesting. They did this in Florida. There were large parts of Florida over the last year that mask mandates were in place in schools. And there were large parts of Florida where there were no mask mandates in schools. And a epidemiologist, statistician at Brown University looked at those two groups, huge groups of kids, no difference. Now, that's the kind of study that tells you whether a population intervention is going to work or not. Because we took 50,000 kids and we told them you got to wear a mask. And some schools probably leaned on those kids hard and some schools didn't lean quite so hard. And that was the mask group. And then we got another group where they didn't have to wear a mask. And maybe a few parents were scared and they sent their kid in a mask anyway, but most of them didn't. And then we go back and we look and there's no difference. From a practical standpoint, studies like that, case closed. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So you mean to tell me the mask that has a team logo on the front of it doesn't work? Doesn't really do anything?
But if it was a Buffalo Bills mask, though,
it definitely doesn't work.
Will it only work?
It'll get you to overtime.
Will it only work
until for 13 seconds?
Too soon or
No, never.
Well, speaking of students and teachers out there, let's bring up the cat news. I've said this before. Before we came on. Tell me this is not the exact reason why this podcast was made.
What the fuck? I'm sorry. I just read it.
It's a family-friendly
I just read it. I'm sorry. Excuse my outburst.
Teacher fired for not meowing at student who identified as a cat.
Wait. Okay, so I read this the first time, and I thought it said teacher was fired for meowing.
No, for not meowing.
That's 100% worse. Wow.
Can we?
Well, that's compelled speech, right? That's the whole thing. That's why this is such an issue.
That's what
Jordan Peterson
that's what got Jordan Peterson on the radar 5 years ago. He said, I don't care if you think you're a cat, but you cannot compel me to meow at you.
Well, and in Canada, what was it? Bill C-16. They were trying to put that through.
That's the same thing that Dave Chappelle said when he saw dude's meat fall out of his skirt in his stand-up. He's like, "Oh, wait a minute. You want me?" I mean, I clearly, he said, I clearly see your nuts hanging on the couch, but you want me to call you a girl? All right, whatever. Like, how far into this do I have to play along with?
Yeah. Well, so, and what people don't understand, because people always bring up the argument, well, you can't yell fire in a movie theater. And yeah, that's right. If there's not a fire. However, there's plenty of things you can't say. There is not things that you are mandated to say.
Right.
Like this. And this is insanity.
How much of a
you shouldn't be in a school because school is for boys and girls.
I've said this is the reason why we have this podcast is to have these kind of conversations.
Well,
to say this is fucking stupid.
Well, is it? Yeah, I want to know if there's more of a psychological explanation as to what's going on overall, because it's coming from
or biblical.
You can break down however way you want to talk about it, right?
Austin's looking at me with the rock eyebrow over there.
Whatever. What part of the Bible you see that? But so fear is one thing that
a tool.
It's a amazing tool for a lot of people who use it and understand its power. And I saw a study one time. I don't know if you are aware of it or if you they did a study one time about the CIA and just how people will just accept anything that someone within the medical, like in a medical trench coat would say or do, and they just take it as gospel.
Let's go, Brandon.
So within just everything that's happening today, which, with COVID, and as you as a doctor, when you see shit that just does not add up to what you were taught when, it was probably in legit science when you were, now I don't know what the fuck you call it today. You know what I mean? Like, how worried are you with the people who are pulling the strings, who are, when you see shit like this, I'm not gonna meow at you.
You crazy little kid.
Yeah. Right.
You crazy little kid. Go talk to your mommy.
You're a smart individual. What do you like? I know I'm going crazy. How do you look at this shit? Like, what do you say?
It's very difficult. I would say two things about this cat madness. The first thing would be that, as many people have pointed out, when you get into when you start approaching a totalitarian situation like Russia in the Soviet Union, people said this over and over again. They would force you to say and nod your head and agree to some crazy, stupid stuff like this. And part of it is to force you to comply. Part of you is to get you used to hearing nonsense and stuff that goes against it. It's not just to drive you crazy. It's to subjugate you. It's to beat you down.
Right.
Now look at the people here right now that are, they're driving around with masks on when they're solo in the car 2 years later. No, I'm sorry.
You can't be doing that when I'm drinking, because I saw somebody today. I was like, what the fuck?
Or riding their bike.
Walking down the street.
Right. Riding
on a wrestling team.
Right. So I would say this, you look at this, that's what it's for. That's to subjugate and turn you into a subject rather than a citizen. If you can convince people to meow when some child tells you to meow, you can be made to do just about anything.
How about that for sinister?
Digging deeper, it must be a bigger agenda, huh?
Right.
So it's not all about that shit.
I think that's, now if you look at my profession, which I've become very disillusioned about lately, is you realize that it's, from my viewpoint, is that it's very top down and it's very power structured. We go back to Fauci for just a second. I was saying to Jose before this, Fauci's really the linchpin for this whole thing, because not only did he use our tax dollars to do the research in Wuhan and the virus.
Can we say that?
And the virus came out of the lab. Everyone from Rand Paul to Jon Stewart knows that. And and then from right on there, him and Collins worked like crazy to suppress the lab leak, which is now coming out. And in 2 years, all these people who are driving around solo with their masks on to this day are going to say, "Oh yeah, I knew it all along." When some of us have been saying it since the beginning and have been told we're crazy.
What did Jon Stewart say about the chocolate?
Oh, so this is I'm sure it's online, but Jon Stewart had been kind of, I guess, I don't follow him closely at all, but
red pill
after he gave up his, I don't think so, quite there. He's not like Maher or anything, but
Bill Maher went.
He's whoa,
he woke up real quick.
But anyway, he was on. This was quite a while ago. This is 6 months ago, I would guess, or so. He was on Colbert's show, and he comes out looking like he's been hidden in his room for 6 months. He looks like
Biden during the election.
Kind of, yeah. He looks like a COVID hermit, and he comes out and he just goes on this rant about how the virus must have come out of the lab, and he never quite says it out loud, and Colbert, you could tell, didn't like it at all, because Colbert's,
super liberal.
Well,
he's he's a hoe.
Yeah, he is. But
he's Jewish. He should know better.
Well, I mean, they run Hollywood and all that anyway, so he's adhering to his masters. So that's
all right. We'll go with that.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So anyway, so Stewart's on there, and I'm not doing it justice, but he looks like they just let him out of his room after 6 months of hiding from COVID.
And he looks like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You've seen this,
like a man.
And he says at one point, Colbert kind of says, "You really think that's what happened?" He says, if you're in central Pennsylvania and there's this giant explosion of chocolatey goodness everywhere, and they tell you it's bubbling out of the ground, do you believe them, or do you think maybe there was an explosion at the Hershey's chocolate factory?
Right. Too much common sense.
And to me, that was kind of the thing that I think everybody should look at, because maybe that'll wake people up, that they're just statistically impossible that this came out of a fish market. Remember they were talking about pangolins? I had to look up what a pangolin was. And now we've all given up on the pangolins. And now it's back to the bads.
I love listening to people talk about like the whole, like the people who are dialed in with the whole like COVID's gonna kill you shit, right? Like I'm not disputing whether or not people get sick from COVID. I don't got time for that shit. Like, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and say that another sickness is not gonna come out of the blue 10 years from now. It can, like, fuck, like it's gonna happen. But when you see people so dialed in and they break down how COVID came here and what you got to do to protect yourself and shit like that, this like they probably would believe fucking chocolate was spewing out of the fucking
probably if you put it on CNN. But you did bring up another good point there with the let's talk about the other cat news that let's go Brandon commented about.
It's a convenient name,
right? That's a very convenient name. He's in Facebook jail.
Yeah.
Woman claims she is sick after carrying hissing monkey that escaped truck in Pennsylvania crash. So this truck crashes, bunch of monkeys on board in these cages, right? And these monkeys were headed to a place where they're doing trials on them. You know, they were experimenting on these monkeys, right? We all in normal life, in normal life, we'd be like, "Whoa, that's fucked up." But in this life, we're like, "Yeah, I mean, we gotta do."
Reminds you of the 9/11 crash, right? They just said, "Fuck this, we about to take this bitch down. We're not going to get
which 9/11 crash are you talking about?
The Pennsylvania one. It's in the same state.
Okay.
That one. They took it over, right?
There was
said, fuck it.
Yeah. Okay.
Quote unquote.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we still ain't find that black box,
bro.
But that's problem for another day.
I can promise you that's not what happened.
Jose,
I'm sorry to anyone.
We gotta talk. We gotta talk. We can't talk conspiracies, Jose. We can't talk conspiracies, Jose. We gotta talk about the reality.
I want to talk about
the majority understands.
I want to talk about the L'Oreal monkeys.
The L'Oreal monkeys?
Yeah. What, Suave? What hair care product were they going to test on? Because you know what that's what these monkeys were for.
No,
because
they would have said it, right?
Are these COVID monkeys?
They won't say what it is.
That's what I want to know. I want to know what these monkeys were being sent for. Because if you look, you say cages. Cages is did you see the picture?
I did not.
The picture is like an Amazon shipping box. That's what it looks like. Like I've gotten drill bits in the mail that are better packaged than these monkeys were.
Well, I will say this for the and this has hit the press a little bit with all the Beaglegate stuff that surrounded
that people quickly forgot about.
Fauci and the NIH
quickly forgot about that.
But
conveniently,
right? But the treatment of these animals is so horrendous that I wouldn't be surprised if they were shipped more poorly than. It's truly criminal what they do to dogs and monkeys. And just in terms of this woman getting something from monkeys, monkeys
immediately she got it.
They're trying to, the press is, I think, in my view of this, is trying to scare us into thinking there's something right around the corner that's just waiting to come out. But the reality is, even if it was legitimate, we talk about viruses jumping from animals to humans. And I think, Lavelle, you kind of touched on this before we started, but yeah, it comes oftentimes from primates because they're closer genetically to us. So something that would infect a monkey is more likely to be able to jump to us because it's, 95% similar genetically than coming from a bat, which is maybe 50% similar. So the fact that monkeys are sources of this is not surprising, but that doesn't mean that anything in this particular article makes any sense whatsoever.
It went back to, like I was saying, with our guy Fauci. Well, AIDS came from, a couple homosexuals one day. This guy, he was in Africa and he banged a monkey. Then he went on the plane and he banged a stewardess. I know this is. I'm telling you, guys don't believe it. But,
shot up heroin.
And then he came to San Francisco and went to another party, had a big orgy, and now we have HIV.
Makes sense.
There's a guy from Quebec, a physician from Quebec that wrote a great book called The Origin of AIDS. And if you're interested about it, that along with Band Played On, great book.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
And
Titanic?
Tom Hanks, Denzel, great movie.
So, but that guy has laid out the whole thing. The first case of AIDS, going back and looking at blood samples and case histories and stuff in the United States. Guess what year?
60.
That's a good guess. That's a
Damn,
hell of a
how?
good guess.
It came out in like 85.
The first report was in the CDC's MMWR, Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report, in 1981 in Los Angeles. 6 cases. Okay, that was when it was identified. But retrospectively, looking back,
Once they identified it
and went back and had blood samples, the earliest one in the United States, 1959.
Ooh.
So it was around
when all the drugs were.
It was the strangest thing. How did it get to Haiti? Because a lot of Haitians,
Clayton,
Haitians.
It's way before that.
Ooh,
a lot of Haitians went over to work on projects in Africa. It was in the population, but not identified in Africa. It probably came from bushmeat, not from doing anything, from eating monkeys, not from doing something.
Banging them.
Right, exactly.
That's what Fauci said. He had sex with him. I swear to God, I saw it. And I was there.
He's running.
I told him not to do it, but he wouldn't listen to his doctor. And,
So it got in through bushmeat. It may well have been proliferated in a big way. This is a great book. It's Jacques Pepin, the same guy who, he's not the chef with Julia Child, same name, but different guy.
Yeah, you lost me on that one.
And the little French guy that worked with Julia Child?
No.
His name is the same. It's Jacques Pepin. So if I say Jacques Pepin, they know he's a chef, but it's a different Jacques Pepin. But anyway, this book, Origin of AIDS, great book. And what happened was a lot of it got into the population somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa, Senegal, or something like that, and through bushmeat, or through going out and hunting and getting a chimpanzee or a bonobo or something and eating it. And
that's how you say it. I've been saying bonobo the entire time.
That's how I say it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Bonobo, tomato, right?
I guess, yeah.
So, anyway, so it gets into the population there. The Haitians came over to do contract work, construction work, and so on. They bring it back to Haiti, fairly small, closed population, so it spreads there, heterosexually mostly.
Okay, I was about to say.
And then it gets into the American homosexual population through sexual tourism to places where you can have homosexual anonymous sex. So that's really what happened. And the French Canadian agent Patient Zero, the airline flight attendant, that plays a role, but that's just one part of it.
Well, I think that was a scapegoat. You know what I mean? They use gays, homosexuals. Oh, they're queer, they're different. So less people would care, right? But and the thing is, it was so Fauci, right? Because with HIV, it quickly switched to the inner city African American minority issue. Oh, blacks, Africans, people who were poor or whatever,
heroin addicts.
Right. The downtrodden, they're most susceptible.
Well, right? You know what he did, of course. So now he wanted to study the drugs. A lot of parallels to here. So, now with all the question of suppressing these generic drugs that work so well, which Fauci's been doing, to promote the vaccines and to promote,
Florida.
Right. So that's one thing. But back in the 80s, when they were testing drugs for HIV, they did a number of studies on quote unquote AIDS orphans in New York City who were almost exclusively black or minority kids, young kids, living at this one particular orphanage in New York. And the outcomes for these kids was absolutely horrendous. I mean, they were basically like lab rats, and they died. I mean, it's all in Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book, Real Anthony Fauci, just horrendous stuff. And just victimization of really vulnerable people, kids. I mean, the parallels are just crazy.
And yet we still pay this motherfucker.
Well, you brought up Florida, which brings us to the next topic here.
Keep them coming, Austin.
Biden decides, his administration decides, should I say, that Florida needs to close down their monoclonal antibody sites. So the same sites that were found to be extremely helpful during COVID are now being shut down. Now, mind you, Jen Psaki says that, we've done the research they're not very potent for the Omicron variant. So I just want to make sure that we are aware that we've done enough research to know that the monoclonal antibodies, the certain ones that they said we can't use anymore, they know that those particular ones are not very useful against the Omicron variants.
Is then the implication that they were useful for the other variants?
Yes, they said
They
that
were,
it was very
yes,
useful
they were.
for Delta.
But they admitted that?
Yes, they did
Okay,
admit
good.
that. But why can't they also admit that the vaccine that has also been shown to not be very appropriate for the Omicron variant, and even the Pfizer CEO said, hey, after 2 doses is not doing shit for Omicron variant. Why do we still have vaccine mandates?
You're just adding to my next question to the good doctor here, because I have a great question.
If this isn't good for Omicron and this isn't good for Omicron, yet this was immediately shut off, why isn't this one shut off?
My question is, how long did it take for this drug to get to the public to even use? I guarantee you
the monoclonal antibodies.
I guarantee.
Have you ever tried to get that in New York?
I guarantee you that shit was researched and made possible a whole lot longer than the vaccines were.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you that it went through a whole lot more rigorous FDA approval, clinical research trials than the vaccine. So,
well, let's ask the doctor.
That's what I'm saying. My next question to the good doctor for this drug, and then also the vaccination, within just your own, if you have any experience of being a part of any type of clinical trial, how fearful were you when you heard the Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson vaccines became available versus any other drug that could have been on the market that could help COVID?
Let me preface that real quick, because I know that you are a doctor who sees COVID patients directly.
Yes, I do.
Directly.
I diagnose it. I treat it. I follow them up. Yes.
Thank you, God.
Now go ahead and speak to Lavelle's question there. Just wanted to preface that.
It's an excellent question. And the first thing I would say is every person, whether it's people in this room or whether it's people listening, is a healthy skepticism is important in obviously every aspect of your life. It's obviously important in anything where you are a consumer. And when you are getting healthcare, make no mistake, you're a consumer.
Absolutely.
And if you just say, okay, well, these guys say it's great, then they're going to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.
Damn.
And that's just the way that it is. That's the way life is. And I would say, to answer your question, generally, and I won't use my own expertise such as it is, or my own knowledge such as it is, I use Robert Malone's, who spent his whole career studying and developing vaccines. 5 years is generally considered the bare minimum to have a good understanding of what the side effect profile of a vaccine is.
Jeez.
5 years. Now, that's also when you consider that most vaccines are using old, quote unquote, platforms, as they call it, old technologies that have a track record of and by themselves. So if we make this year's flu vaccine and it's slightly different than last year's flu vaccine, unless we do something really unusual, we can be pretty confident it's going to behave like last year's and the years before and the year before that. But not only did we take less than a year to test these things, when you can only really test them over time to a large extent for any kind of long-term problems, they say it's safe and effective. Notice they never say it's safe long-term, because they can't even fake out the most gullible person with that, because the vaccine's only been around for a year. And furthermore, the other thing I wanted to say is the technology it's been around for decades, but it's never been used as a vaccine for an infectious disease.
That's going to be my question there.
So you're using totally new technology. So it's untested.
Well, the technology has been around for
It's-
decades.
It's been around, but it's never been given to hundreds of millions of people. It's never been given to tens of thousands of people.
Okay, how many people was it given to?
Well, none for this particular one, because now we get into the mRNA technology was used in relatively small studies for cancer-based research.
Okay.
Okay. But there's another problem potentially with these vaccines, and that is the way I can put the vaccine picture in my own mind is this. It's like any other risk-benefit analysis. So in March of 2021, when these vaccines were first really available widely, my parents who are in their 80s said, should I get the vaccine? And I said, yeah, you should get the vaccine because it appears to be effective. And at that point, it had some effectiveness. There are some side effects. We have no idea what the long-term effects are. But if you get COVID at that point, you were thought to have somewhere around a 1% chance of dying.
Yeah, they're at high risk.
Right. They're at high risk. And if you're 84, who cares what happens in 20 years?
Right. Right.
Now,
or if you can't have a baby in 20 years.
Right. But if you're 5 years old and your risk of dying of COVID is statistically zero, I mean, it's statistically zero, and you're going to live another 80 years, what on earth are we doing saying they're safe and effective? This is what bothers me the most. I got my flu shot this year. I've gotten all my shots. I mean, I'm shot
overload
to the brim.
Right. But the reality is that every single treatment that we have out there should be stratified to the risk benefit of that individual person.
Well, that just makes sense though.
That is moral and competent medical care. And what they have done is they have thrown that completely out the window at every level and said, give it to everybody, damn the torpedoes. And that is wrong. That is so wrong. It's unbelievable. And someone will say, well, you're anti-vax. No, I'm not. I told my parents they should get that vaccine. I said, it's your choice,
right.
But I think you should get it. But a 5-year-old child, that is wrong. There's a risk benefit, as Robert Malone said out there, the risk benefit analysis is not even close.
Yeah. It's like 1 in a million chance, not to put numbers into perspective there, but I just did.
I was just going to say, from within just this vaccination and just going back to how long it takes for something to get to the market, the FDA, just off of knowing people who are within that field of medical research and how hard it is to get something to the market, the FDA does very rigorous audits on whichever pharmaceutical companies doing any type of research. There's audits that are periodically done throughout that whole entire process of the research that's going on. So within just this vaccination, the FDA probably never even audited the medical research team or whatever.
Well, let's ask.
Well,
let's ask, because I want to make sure that people understand that we have our own views, right? But we have a doctor here.
How important is just the whole entire process, the checks and balances of anything to make sure that the data that you have is even accurate enough to even test a human being.
Has it been accurate? Has there been testing? Has there been updates? Because I feel as though everyone talks about the VAERS, and the numbers are astronomical compared to prior years. And they say, well, you got to take those with a grain of salt. Okay, cool. I'll take that with a grain of salt, but I'm also going to take this with a grain of salt. So talk to us about the actual, feedback and have they actually gone back and looked at the numbers and gone through it? Because I feel like I've seen FDA videos where they've gone through it and said, this doesn't really make sense. We need to make sense for people in order to make sure that they get everyone vaccinated. So we get, herd immunity.
Yeah. The FDA is the big distinction with the FDA is this emergency use authorization versus FDA approval,
which there is one that's FDA approved.
There is. And even that's complicated because Pfizer was FDA approved, but it was it's so twisted up in so many other things. So for example, when they finally gave FDA approval to basically a version of the Pfizer vaccine that they called Comirnaty. Okay,
Right.
it's a funny name. I don't know where it comes from. Basically, Pfizer and the government and other entities still had millions and millions of doses of the previous version, which they stated was chemically identical, but it's got a different name and it's got a different packaging or whatever around it.
And they teamed up with another company.
And the reason was because once you get FDA approval as opposed to emergency use authorization, the protection from liability for the manufacturer changes. So if you got the true Comirnaty, if you got one where the vial said Comirnaty, my understanding, and I'm pretty sure this is pretty much dead on, you have recourse legally if something goes wrong with you because of the vaccine. If you get the old one that was manufactured on the emergency use one, you don't. And so what they were trying to do, people feel, and it sure seems like it, is wait as long as possible to start giving out the Comirnaty, even though theoretically it's identical, because as long as they gave you the one that was the EUA version, they are completely, they're the ones that are immune. They're immune from any liability.
Well,
so the whole thing is so twisted.
Right.
Motherfuckers.
Well, let me add to that, because
They some sneaky motherfuckers.
being in government, I have access to information. I should have access to information. Messaging the Monroe County Health Department and asking them any kind of questions has been, I might as well just, go sit in a corner and wait for the freaking world to end, because it's not happening. Number one, Comirnaty, a vaccine that has been approved by FDA. I have been told by the doctors, by the Monroe County health officials, that the vaccine they're giving out is essentially the same thing. I said, okay, it's not, is it essentially the same thing, or is it the same thing? Is it labeled this or is it not? Because I feel as though what we're giving out are only the emergency use ones and not the FDA approved ones. So what I want to know is how many of the FDA approved Comirnaty, whatever the hell you say it,
Bonobo
vaccines, right? How many of those have we given out, and how many are available right now for the people? Not an answer. Another question I asked them, because we talked about the children, was we're going to be giving out as a city, maybe as a county, $50 gift cards. Thank you, gift cards to parents that bring their children to get vaccinated, right? So you get up to $100. So as long as you get your children vaccinated twice, you get up to $100. Well, I asked, what information are we providing to parents so that in the rare occasion that someone potentially gets an adverse effect, that they are covered under whatever health, medical, whatever, to make sure that they understand that whatever happens and what to look for, so that they can bring their child in and they are covered under whatever health insurance. Not a single answer. Again, mind you, I'm an elected official.
Right.
I deserve to have these answers. I said that our parents in this city deserve to have the answers to make sure that they make the right decision. That's how I ended the email. Not a single answer on that one as well. If you want to give people the reason to come and do what you say is good for them, you provide the evidence, you provide the information, so they're able to make the qualified decision on their own. But what we're doing is we're paying poor people to get a vaccine that is not FDA approved. Because I can tell you right now, I've asked everybody, was it the Comirnaty? Did it say Comirnaty on it? Does it say that on your vaccine card? What does it say on your vaccine card? I need to know, because I want to know if they are purposely giving a certain segment of the community, purposely black people or brown people or white people, whatever it may be. I want to know what vaccines they are giving you, because I'm personally keeping track of it.
What I would ask you to do as an elected official, I'm not in the city, so technically you don't work for me, but what I would suggest that you do is gather that information, and also gather information that shows that if in fact this has happened, that they are claiming that they're giving someone an FDA approved vaccine. If you say to some anyone, poor, rich, or whatever, we're giving you an FDA approved vaccine. In this case would be the Comirnaty.
Right.
And you give them the old version.
Right.
That is fraud. That's fraud.
Is it though? Is it though? Because we keep hearing things where we can sue, we can challenge.
If it's Comirnaty, this is the understanding I have.
Uh-huh.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, go ahead.
If it's Comirnaty, you have legal recourse. If it's not, you do not. Because under the EUA, you do not have legal recourse. So you understand why they might be doing this. They say, this is FDA approved. And it may well be, I have a hard time trusting
I would
anybody,
love to know the answer.
but it may well be that, you know, they put out, it's like saying new Coke is FDA approved. Old Coke isn't.
Wait, are you talking about Coke soda or Coke to cocaine?
Excellent point. New Coca-Cola. Remember,
Old Coke was FDA approved. Old Coke was.
Old Coke was.
Remember new Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so new Coca-Cola is FDA approved.
Was that the clear one?
And
That's Pepsi.
and
Pepsi.
and
You're right.
old Coca-Cola is on an EUA. If you drink new Coke and you find a rat in your Coke, okay, you can sue the Coca-Cola Corporation. But if it's old Coca-Cola, you cannot, right? Now, without telling people, you give everybody old Coke. They find a rat in it, they can't sue you. That's what's going on.
If it was labeled as an ingredient.
Right, exactly.
And you know, and so it explains how they're able to get away with the mass vaccination, or this. I consider this a global clinical trial, because just think, like, there's so many clinical trials that have gone and failed, and they put so many millions of dollars behind these clinical trials that never see the light of day.
Billions.
So
Billions.
just think, if you're a fucking piece of shit pharmaceutical bigwig that has like connections, like, yo, man, I just keep like, yo, we're not making any money off of these drugs and these vaccinations. We need to figure out a way to get this out. Yo, I got so much money I'm wasting. Like, I got vaccinations on vaccinations
on deck.
Like, they just rotten. What can we do?
Right.
Remember, Pfizer has a direct connect with the FBI.
Oh, do they?
Because they were the ones. It was in the Project Veritas court case that they were talking to each other.
So wait, so now I was watching this documentary. I forgot what it was, but I think it had to do with, like, you know, cancer society and how they're cozy with the FDA and they kind of scratch each other's back. So money rules everything within just the medical world. Like, you have your good and you have your bad. How can we blow the whistle on this type of negligence within just government? And because, yo, let's face it, the medical field is $1 trillion business. It's kind of like too big to fail. It is too big to fail. There's a lot of hospitals out there that are running deficits that we don't know, that will gladly accept a kickback on a body, you know, all day if the government's going to pay for them, because they don't.
90-year-old body.
Right.
Exactly. So how can we increase the awareness of just, yo, ask questions on anything that you just don't know? Like, how can you like, I don't know, get a patient to just be, you know, cautious about their medical, you know, their medical care?
Yeah, I that's a great question. I don't know if you're talking about it at the individual level. I tell my patients something, and this has nothing to do with COVID. I've said this for years to my patients. I've said, look, it's your body. It's your life. I am going to hear your story. I'm going to examine you. I'm going to do the lab tests that I think are appropriate, and I'm going to make recommendations to you. And I'm also going to tell you how confident I am that the recommendation is sound. Sometimes you're not that sure. Sometimes you're really sure, right? And I'm also going to tell you what I think the stakes may be if you choose to ignore it. But ultimately, it's your decision. And when I see you next time, if I really think it's important, I'm going to bug you about it again. But it's your decision. And if that sounds, that sounds like revolutionary right now, it's absolutely, if you look at the core features of medical ethics that have been established since the Nuremberg trials and since Tuskegee and all these other horrible things.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that one up.
I'm telling you, I've got a lot of African-American patients, and they are rightfully, they hear the letters CDC, and they got a problem. And I don't blame them one bit.
Oh, no.
And even after the whistleblower came out in the late 60s about it, they kept it going until 1972, until the whistleblower came out again.
Right.
So, this is something where the capacity for big medicine to do the wrong thing, it's historical fact. And it's really too bad. It's horrible, but it's true.
Well, let's talk about what's happening with Omicron and the evolution of the virus. So we see that Omicron is pretty much everyone has had it. I feel as though at this point you've either had it or you were susceptible to it. Like you were in front of it.
Though? Can we still call it COVID Omicron? Is it COVID Omicron?
It's still COVID-19.
It's still COVID-19. They just brought another name to it.
Why would it be COVID-19? Because we're in 2022.
I don't know.
COVID-22?
I don't know.
It's still COVID.
Okay.
It's still COVID. It's the same. It's just a different.
It's a different strain. So
what's happening with the strains? Because it's evolving, and it seems as though it's getting weaker. Because the way to see if you have Omicron variant is because you fell asleep. You automatically have Omicron.
Right. I would say this. One thing I would say is that, again, in high-risk populations, I still don't want to in any way say that you can't get sick and die from COVID, because particularly in vulnerable populations, it's still matter for concern. I will say this, and I've been saying this for 2 years now, and this is really something that all of you guys took high school biology, and anyone who took basic epidemiology, virology in medical school should know.
All of us here did.
Okay, good. But I can, even if you didn't, I can coach you on it if you took high school biology. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is that the tendency of these viruses over a period of time, not in a period of a week, but in a period certainly of years, evolution puts pressure on a virus just like it puts pressure on any living organism. And it pressures it to become more effective at reproducing and surviving, right? Why otherwise it becomes extinct, right?
Right.
So evolutionary pressure almost invariably causes these viruses over time to become easier to transmit and harder to kill the host. And that just makes logical sense. In a sense, the perfect virus is a common cold. What does it do? It makes me just sick enough to get all congested and sneeze in your face. And then it makes you just sick enough to get sick and sneeze in his face, and so on down the line. But it doesn't kill us, because if it kills us, it burns down, right? It burns down the house it's living in and the factory that's making more of it. So that's what happens over time. And to me, and I think this is pretty well on, but this is my view of it.
As a doctor of internal medicine.
Right,
yes.
This is what I've been saying since the beginning. This is what will happen. And Omicron appears to be a good example of that, because it's clearly more transmissible and it's clearly less deadly. That's the way it's going. Now, there may be a couple bumps in the road here and there, but that's quote unquote science. She blinded me with science. That's the
real shit.
That's just the way it always is. Okay. Now, these viruses, these respiratory viruses, are extremely simple viruses. Smallpox is much more complicated. It doesn't evolve as quickly. It doesn't
terrified
change.
of smallpox. Terrified of smallpox.
So smallpox takes forever to, relatively speaking, to significantly mutate. Plus, smallpox doesn't have an animal reservoir. It's only in humans. That's how we were able to get rid of it. This one is in bats. It's in other stuff. I mean, if they've isolated tigers at the zoo in Belgium, so it gets into other stuff. So the only way to truly eradicate it at this point would be basically to eradicate mammalian life on Earth, probably. So it's never going to be eradicated.
So
Kind of what they want.
So to piggyback on what you were saying about the evolution of the virus. Now, if you look at something like the Spanish flu, which lasted about 2 years.
Well, watch it.
From
the Latinx
1918 to
Latinx flu.
Well, it was more encompassing than that. There were more white Spaniards than
Right. That's true.
and basically it died out because it became less lethal, essentially. And that's what it was. The timeline was about 2 years, give or take, about April 1918 to 1920. We're seeing that. Are we seeing that now?
That's a great question. That is, I will admit, what's definitely above my knowledge base for virology to say how quickly we expect this to happen. It's interesting that the time frame appears to be roughly the same, but I'll tell you that I don't know if that's a coincidence. I just don't know. I would guess it is. And the reason I say that, and this is the first time anyone's asked me this question, I don't know the answer. So let me say this.
Okay.
But I'll throw out a guess. The evolutionary pressures on this virus are different from the ones then.
Sure.
And the reason is because we're peppering vaccines at it. So that's a very strong, and that's why these vaccines have become, the strains have become so resistant to the vaccines. So think for a second, think again about evolution. So I've gotten the vaccine, and now I get COVID. Say I get one of the earlier strains. Okay, so the vaccine codes for, or it makes me immune to a version of the spike protein, right? Version 1A of the spike protein, okay? So let's say it's really effective against that. It's going to kill off all the viruses or eat up all the viruses that have that same spike protein. But one very ingenious one has already mutated. And it's different enough that it doesn't get killed off. So guess which one survives, still produces some stuff, enough stuff for me to sneeze in your face.
This is too basic, though.
The one that's resistant.
This is too basic, though. We've been saying this ever since this podcast even came on.
You're not a doctor. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
And I wonder, you're like a fucking endangered species because they are suppressing doctors like you and allowing doctors like, Italian Fauci to get so much credit and exposure of just, he knows what he's talking about. Do you think that this is a deliberate attempt to get rid of doctors like you that are actually prolonging life for others on this planet? Like, you hear eugenics a lot.
I will tell you, I'll answer it this way. You guys ask great questions. That's another question that I just don't know the answer to.
Is there pressure on you to answer a specific kind of way, though? Because you're on the podcast speaking amazing truths that a lot of us already kind of knew.
Yeah.
But it's now coming from a doctor who practices internal medicine on
exact the context.
COVID patients. And you've done it for the flu, you've done it for the cold, you've done it from everybody. And it's not like anyone can sit there and say, you don't know what you're talking about, because everyone sits there and says, you're listening to Joe Rogan and he thinks he's a doctor. No, he just interviews doctors, right? And here we are interviewing a doctor. So is there pressure on you from your employer, from anywhere else to say, no, shut your mouth and know your role?
There is. And I'll tell you what, I'm small potatoes. There are people much, the Pierre Curies and the Robert Malones and the Peter McCullochs, the guys that they're trying to shut down Rogan because he has them on their podcast. Those guys are true heroes. Those guys have put it all out there. And, so go and watch when he had Peter McCulloch on there. Peter McCulloch is one of the most cited researchers on earth in terms of medical studies.
From a doctor saying this, it's not like Austin over here saying he's a well-cited doctor, so you should listen to him. It's a doctor who's went through
Austin, anything he tells me.
I listen to Austin for everything besides video games.
But these guys like go watch Rogan's interview with McCulloch. Go watch Rogan's interview with Malone. Now Malone's a researcher.
That was already been censored. It's not on YouTube anymore.
Well, it's on Spotify though.
Is that Spotify? Yeah. Oh, so Neil Young didn't get that one taken off?
No.
Nah.
No.
I just can't deal with the commercials on. I didn't subscribe yet. But,
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so anyway, but
pay that
that's
money.
actually, I actually watched a lot of it on the one with Malone on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, they took that down real quick.
But one of the Republican congressmen, I think, put it in the congressional record.
Yep.
And so theoretically, you can't.
Right. You're not supposed to censor
what's in
That's
this.
what's up.
Theoretically,
right.
But I'll find a way.
So anyway, but those guys, I mean, they're like me times 1,000. I mean, they're doing something at an international level. The people that did this Great Barrington Declaration that you probably heard of.
Oh yeah.
Now those people are starting to gain some traction because
Harvard, Stanford, big Ivy League school,
and
doctors.
Oxford. And guess what? Francis Collins called them fringe epidemiologists.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Is that even? It blows my mind that people actually sit there and I'm like, do you think that these doctors would just come out and say these things and risk everything that they've worked for on some bodank freaking assertion that might be way off? No, they're like, who is risking anything here?
You want to know why they can
falling
get away
in
with
line
this
is
shit?
not risking anything.
Here's why they can get away with this. The Dr. Oz's of the world, the way people, where people go to get their information and content of how they should think, it comes from anything mainstream. So you put these mainstream dickheads up there,
big faces,
right, who haven't practiced anything in a billion years. They go, oh yeah, I'm not listening to them. Oh no, did you watch The View yesterday? They had this doctor on, and Whoopi, we're just these people, not these people. A good majority of people in this country are so dumbed down. That is why when you
they're not dumb.
They are dumbed down because they won't take the time to listen to a podcast of Joe Rogan's.
That's too much time.
It's too much time, but it's too in depth.
And he goes for 3 hours. Let's be honest here.
But again, the majority of people get their content from TV, CNN, ABC,
or 1 minute clips on YouTube.
Yes,
or TikTok.
So it's such a challenge for doctors who, like real legit doctors, who probably don't even have the time
on
to
the front lines.
Watch ABC or CNN to hold these idiots accountable. Right? They're not thinking about that because they think within their own community that they all challenge each other and they can feed off of each other. But when that's taken away from you, and like, oh, the conversation's being had on CNN today. What the fuck? What? With Don Lemon. Wait, why? All of a sudden, the majority of the country believes that washing your hands and all those other things are just a thing of the past.
Fringe. That's fringe.
Like, what the fuck?
Well, let's talk about the medical industrial complex nationwide and compared to here in Rochester, because you said that there's doctors out there that are, supposedly 100 times bigger than you, talking out there that, they're being silenced. But what is happening here in Rochester with the medical industrial complex, big pharma, that is pushing people to not speak up or to keep them in line? What is happening here?
That's my opinion. And this is what I would say is happening. So let me give you like a brief. Again, Fauci's absolutely at the center of this. Fauci controls, if you want to do clinical research, or you want to do research on new drugs or new therapies or whatever, there's basically, in medicine, there's basically two avenues to get funding. The first is through the NIH. And Fauci is by title only the head of NIAID, but he is the real power behind most of the money that comes out of the NIH. So you write a grant proposal, you send it to the NIH, they look at it, they may send it back for commentary or whatever, but basically you go hat in hand to the NIH for money to do your study. This is highly valued at universities and academic centers because it's prestigious to get money from the NIH. Plus, it's lucrative. They've got tons of tax dollars. The other main avenue you've got is big pharma. And you may do clinical trials for big pharma. You may be one of the okay. So if you are a medical researcher in the United States, your bread is buttered by Anthony Fauci. I mean, the figureheads, and he's more than a figurehead. He's really the centerpiece. But the faces of where you eat and where you make your money and where you have your lab, because the successful people have a lab. They've got a lab with 8 graduate students, half of whom are from communist China in many places, but, as it turns out, but the reality is you've got to keep that whole monster. That's your little corporation, and you got to keep that going. And you've got 2 sources principally. If you're lucky, you get a huge private donor, but that's not where most of it comes from. It comes from Anthony Fauci, or it comes from Albert Bourla, who's the head of Pfizer. It's either a clinical trial or it's the NIH. So when they want something, do you say, no, my conscience tells me I'm going to stand up against you? Well, maybe Peter McCulloch did it.
Right. And see what happened to him.
But 99% of people don't do it. They fall right in line.
Well, they find a reason.
Now here's the reason is do re mi. Okay.
Oh, I got another question with that money. Okay, I'm waiting.
Now let me say one thing though about Rochester. It's interesting here. About 10 years ago, the University of Rochester got this huge translational science institute funded by guess who? The NIH.
Translational science.
Yep.
Okay.
It basically was I think it was about 20 different places nationwide. Universities, I think Duke got one, Rochester got one, so on. And basically, if you got this, then you would have a steady stream of NIH money to do what they call translational research, which is bench to bedside, which means going all the way from playing around with viruses in Wuhan, for example, to an mRNA vaccine that cures coronaviruses.
Like actual creation of it.
Right. Well, but you're not necessarily creating it.
Okay.
You're where they implement this stuff.
Okay.
Okay. And you get tens of millions of dollars as an institution to function as basically this hub of moving things from the bench to the bedside. So you're basically like a middleman for putting new medical developments into practice.
Okay.
Okay. So when this coronavirus takes off and when they're developing vaccines and so on, you've got this huge, if you're one of these hubs, which the University of Rochester is, which Duke is, and whatever, you've got this huge influx of money coming in every year from the NIH. Now you tell them we don't want any part of this. We're going to give everybody ivermectin, whether you want us to or not. What's going to happen to you? Now, I can't prove that that's what's happening, but I do know that they have a translational research institute that brings in tens of millions of dollars and makes them a hub of NIH activity.
Is that why they will not back down at all, given all the information? I'm sorry, I shouldn't even ask it like that. From what I've seen, it seems as if those who are vaccinated are impacted almost as much as those who are unvaccinated at this point. Do you agree with that, or do you not see that it may not be at the level that you see?
I think that people who have gotten multiple vaccines are realizing that there's no end in sight. That many people have. My parents again have gotten 3 vaccines,
right?
And it's just with I mean, facts are stubborn things, and just the fact that the latest strain, the Omicron strain, it doesn't seem to work very well at all against it. Kind of makes a 4th one not make sense, but they've already given a 4th one to most of the population in Israel. So the pressure to do that remains, whether you're on your 1st one or your 4th one. It's kind of you're at a party and it's drink, and it doesn't matter if it's your 1st shot or your 10th. I mean, they're still gonna cheer you on. So yeah,
could that be why they might be not backing down after all the protests that we've done in front of U of R, the thousands of people we had, the hundreds of doctors that they had to fire because they refused to get the vaccine, people who worked on the front lines of this entire COVID pandemic who said, no, we've had it, we've seen it, we're good, we'll be all right, our health is fine, let me focus on me and you do you. Might that be why they won't back down from the mandate and say, now they're saying you must get the booster
Mhm.
by this date or else you'll be fired. They just came out with that.
Right. I think that I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know what their I can't speak to their intent.
Okay.
And I won't because I don't know it. But I do know that these large institutions, which include the University of Rochester, have a tremendous amount of financial support
To keep it going.
from NIH directly and from pharmaceutical companies that they do clinical trials with. It's just like on TV. Why can't Peter McCulloch, who again is the most cited practicing physician in the United States,
That's crazy.
he cannot get on the TV. Rarely does he get a few minutes on Fox.
That's so crazy.
But then you watch, CNN brought to you by who?
Pfizer.
Who
Everyone's
is
brought to you by Pfizer.
funded by Bill and Melinda Gates,
Yep.
Rockefeller Foundation, the Warren Buffett Foundations, the philanthropists that, are.
That's conspiracy theory.
Oh, no, that's not. That's not. Mr. Bill Gates, who's warning everybody about the next pandemic.
Is smallpox capable of coming back? Because that's what Bill Gates is saying.
Billy boy. Willie.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the
You worried about that smallpox.
primary care
Verified
physician.
as smallpox. Have you seen the pictures?
You saw it in the military. Boy,
No,
I
no,
let
man,
let
it
you
scared
know
the
what you
bejesus
got
out
to
of
worry
me.
about.
I'm too pretty for smallpox.
It doesn't just affect small people.
Yeah, that's what. Dead
that's
from
it.
the streets,
Got
zinger.
you.
We're canceled because of
Sorry to interrupt the doctor.
You know where the name comes from. There was the smallpox and there was the great pox.
Mm.
Smallpox was smallpox. The great pox was syphilis. So
Ooh.
that. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
So yeah. So that's
Shit.
that's the
So smallpox is a version of syphilis?
no. It's totally unrelated.
Okay.
Okay,
But
I was about
the
to say, wrap it up.
pox,
Yeah, I was like, whoa, shit! I don't want none of them.
the pox that you got, the rash, the lesions on your skin.
That I don't
If
want.
they were bigger, at least that's the way it was characterized.
Okay.
If you had the great pox, you had syphilis. If you had the little ones, the smallpox.
Oh,
you
that's where it
had-
came from.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
where
didn't
it's just a clinical distinction, but that's where the name comes from.
know. Oh,
So-
who was it that got killed from syphilis? Al Capone.
Al Capone.
Yeah, my son brought him up the other day. I'm like, do you know who Al Capone is?
Yeah, he was the man in
I said, you need to watch more YouTube.
So
tell him
the,
watch Boardwalk Empire.
the 30
I don't think so.
30-second version
I
on
don't think so.
smallpox, which is about all I can tell you about, is that it was eradicated from human population in I believe 1978. The last case was identified.
Okay.
And it was the huge World Health Organization vaccination program run by a guy who went to the U of R, a guy named Henderson. Anyway,
Not the one that Bill Gates ran that's paralyzing kids and all other stuff in Africa and India.
no, that's
Not
different.
That's
no,
different. Oh, okay.
that's different.
But that did happen though, right?
sorry,
Oh
what?
yeah, no.
Okay, just
Did we
want to
just
make
open
sure.
up another Pandora's
put it
box?
up
here?
Bill's got a lot of Bill's got a lot to
Good
do
Lord.
with it.
Yeah, Billy boy.
But anyway, to make a long story short, there's supposedly, and I have no reason to believe this is not true. I've
Okay.
not heard anything otherwise. There hasn't been a case of smallpox in humans since about 78. So Fauci'd only been around for 10 years at the NIH at that point. So that's how long
Okay.
ago it was. This is the disco era. Okay. It was the last case.
Oh,
So I think it was
shit.
in Somalia or something. So anyway, so that's the last case. It still exists in labs in these little vials. And the official word is that it exists in the vials at the Centers for Disease Control.
What the fuck?
Or it may be the NIH, I can't remember which, but in Atlanta. And
Secured.
Yep. And you can trust them. And and believe it or not, in the old Soviet Union.
Oh, great.
So when the old
Putin even has some.
sound like we're about to get into war with them.
Great.
So when the old Soviet Union fell apart, it's hard to know.
USSR.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whether some ended up in Kazakhstan and some ended up in Uzbekistan, or who knows?
Bill Gates,
Damn
back pocket.
Uzbekis.
Or Bill Gates.
Bill Gates got some in his mansion
chest
in
freezer down in
Seattle over there.
So, but the official story is, and I have no reason to say it got out anywhere else because I don't know. But as of when it was eradicated in the late 70s, there was some of the virus kept on cold storage in the United States, some kept in cold storage in Russia, and it was eradicated from the human population. And there's no animal reservoir. So if it's not out of those freezers, there's no smallpox.
I'm not minimizing this, Jose, but don't you have enough existential dread without? So smallpox was what, like a 30% mortality?
Something like that.
Yeah. So
Pretty high.
We're not conflating that with COVID, which is 0.00 something, right?
It's not 0.00. It would probably be, I believe, the best. There's a guy from Stanford named John Ioannidis who did, to my knowledge, the best estimate of what the real case fatality rate for COVID, all comers, is.
Sure. What do we
All
think?
ages, no matter how.
Exactly. And this is problematic because, like I said, whenever I take care of individual people. I'm not an epidemiologist. And so when I see somebody, I want to look at you.
Right.
Are you obese? Are you diabetic? Are you 80 years old? Are you,
cut?
Put on a little bit of weight,
right?
but I mean,
Exactly. So I'll give you moderate risk.
Okay.
All right. So, but yeah. So it's misleading to just give one number.
Right.
But the best number I've seen from a trustworthy source, in my view, is this guy John Ioannidis from Stanford, and he thought it was right around 0.26%.
I saw that.
Which is about 26 in 1,000 for all cases.
Yeah.
The flu is somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.1. Okay. So it's like 1 in 1,000 for the flu. So it's something like 3 times as worse than the flu, all comers.
Right.
Now for old people, it's so bad for old people.
What age is old? We say elderly around here.
70s.
The older, the worst.
Yeah.
I would say certainly the number they're commonly saying is 65 and older. I would say certainly 70 and older, you're high risk. And if you're obese, if you're diabetic, it's worse than that. If you're male, it's a little worse than if you're female.
We got it rough, man. We got the rough end of the stick as males.
So, but
attack on men.
So answer your question. That's what the best number I have. So it's say 3 times worse than the flu. Now, the thing about that, you say, it's the flu. The flu kills 30, 40,000 people a year. Yeah. Okay. So the flu's not a joke. We don't care about it anymore, but we should. Okay. And a bad flu year can kill twice as many people as, H1N1 killed a lot of people. It killed 80. I don't know. I shouldn't give numbers, but multiples of what it usually does.
More than double. The flu.
I think so.
Okay.
So the flu kills tens of thousands of people every year.
Right. Don't bat an eye.
Right. Don't ignore it. But we don't shut down society for the flu. We didn't shut down society for H1N1, nor should we have. We did not keep kids out of school for the flu, nor should we have.
However, something like smallpox would be call for concern if that became, because that has such a high rate of death.
Right. It does.
Don't worry, Jose.
Yeah, I'm freaking out about smallpox.
The thing about,
or did have such a high rate of death, right?
Right. And so now we're getting into we're kind of playing these war games that that Fauci and Gates and so on, the Claydex and all that stuff that they were doing in 2016, 17, these sort of simulations to kind of get prepared.
In China, I would think, right? Because over
China,
the Asians have been they've been complying with the mask mandates well before we have been over here. Like they've already I've spoken to a couple, Chinese folks, and I asked them, like, you guys were wearing masks, a while before? Like, yeah, we're used to it. They're used to it, and they're already, conditioned to comply anyway because they don't have a choice, So these, just like you were saying, these simulations that have been carried out throughout the years, it's why a city like New York City, where they're putting all these doggone vaccine mandates and all of these, like New York City is worse than any other city in the country. So if you can successfully lock down and condition this city, you can do it anywhere you want. I think we are in a very, very vulnerable state when it comes to our own freedoms. If we don't wake the freak up and pay attention and start talking shit to the people who are like,
that's what we're here for.
Your self-censorship is entertaining.
I try.
I
But
love
then
it.
I'll
Well,
just
last
come back.
question before we got to end, because we always go over, man.
We
I
do,
feel bad
man.
for Austin,
we can't
but
go Joe Rogan
Right.
4 hours with you
right,
got.
we
but I
want
to.
to. We could. We definitely
could do it. Just
We,
give me some more
we
drink.
still have to go through the notes here, the comments.
Oh wait,
Last week we
roll
forgot it.
on. We did.
Hold on. But quick question, kind of yes or no.
Another variant is
Does
coming.
does the overall blanket of vaccine mandates for anyone 5 years and up make sense to you?
No.
Great answer.
What about
Drop the
what
mic.
about mask mandates?
No.
Drop the mic.
Anyone, any age, does it make sense?
Which one?
Mask mandates or COVID vaccine? Which one would make sense? Because I feel like I've always told people, if you're 60 and older and you're overweight and you're a smoker and you've drank Manhattans every day for the past 60 years, you should probably get the vaccine.
If you have a high risk person,
Mm-hmm.
and I have plenty of high risk people,
Yep.
I recommend that they are vaccinated.
Okay.
So I want to say that right now. So anyone says
Yeah.
I'm dead set
Right.
against the vaccine, blah, 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 you are misrepresenting me. You are not telling the truth.
Okay.
If you are a 5-year-old child, as Robert Malone said, the risk benefit analysis isn't even close.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Now, the masks, I think the issue with the masks is, and any kind of mandate goes back to that decision that Judge Rademacher made Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Is it constitutional? Do you have a right as Kathy Hochul to simply decree that until further notice, you must do this? And the answer is, I tried to stay awake in civics class, and my understanding was exactly what that judge said: pass a law.
Right.
And
Go
then
to the legislature.
Exactly right. Pass a law, and then the law will eventually be assessed as to whether it is constitutional or not.
What about making it a rule through the Department of Health?
Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
And you don't want to ask a doctor for legal
Let me ask
advice.
Austin. Austin, what do you think about making? I'm just joking.
But I guess to answer your question, though, in my opinion, where is their authority? You go, you're the elected official. Where is your authority? On what authority do you do this? Because if you tell somebody you cannot leave your home, if you tell people you cannot gather with other people, if you tell people you cannot do your job,
right.
As
You
Robert Kennedy Jr. said himself, the only part of the Bill of Rights that they haven't taken away from you is the Second Amendment, and whichever one is like quartering soldiers in your house.
Yeah. Yeah. Fourth.
Those are the only two that they haven't touched. Now, the Bill of Rights is there.
Double check me on that.
The Bill of Rights is in place. Now, they have the authority to pass a law, and that law will either stand judicial review or not. But that's the thing that I think that judge put out there. You're saying you're going to mandate this. What the heck's a mandate?
Right.
I mean, when was the last time? I'm old, and I don't remember the last time someone said, this is mandated, you shall do it,
Yeah.
or you shall lose your job, or
Right.
you shall not leave your house, or you shall not. No.
Go to your business, open
Right.
up.
There
hire
can be
employees.
a law that says, theoretically, look, people are upset about, say, the Second Amendment. There's a legal remedy. Pass an amendment to the Constitution that nullifies the Second Amendment.
Right.
But unless you do that, that's the law.
Yeah.
It may be wrong, but that's the law.
Has to
And so
be.
at some question, when do you have civil rights? And they've hit on something very powerful. Scare the heck out of people. and you can get them to do whatever you want them to do. And that's the other side. That has nothing to do with the science. That has nothing to do with the medicine.
That's propaganda.
That's a power grab.
Yeah.
Look at Australia. I mean, I can't believe, I'll leave it to you guys to talk about that. I can't believe that a country like Australia with British common law is where it's at.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe the UK liberated their people before we did.
Fucking
we're stupid.
We liberated from the UK, or I'm sorry, from Britain.
Yeah.
And then Britain
said, yeah,
we're good. We're done.
Good, yeah.
We're done with this before us. Let's look up the notes. I'm sorry. I didn't look at any of the comments. Gotta get Austin out of here before
he punches in the face.
Another variant is coming.
Well, wait, hold on. That Jose, go down. What about the COVID center under investigation by the FBI?
Oh yeah, you saw that there was a COVID testing center that just like popped up out of nowhere. Had some bullshit signs up, right? It just said COVID center here, basically, and it had a wild flapping guy out front with a needle in his hand. It really didn't. Just making that up.
I was going to say they're selling cell phones too.
But
get your COVID shot and Obama phone.
Marcus was selling a cell phone and sticking you in the arm.
Oh, that was over there. Marcus was doing that shit. Oh, yeah. Marcus, where you at? You got COVID shots with your Boost mobile phones over there too.
Stop it,
Cricket.
Go back.
No, he's
back.
Boost. Is it Cricket?
I don't know.
Cricket. He stepped his game up from Boost.
Oh, okay.
Stop it right now. Boost mobile was way better. I totally agree. I have a degree in biotechnology. Michael, I'm sorry, we didn't see where the comment pertained to.
Yo, this was funny. I saw a lead cam. This was hilarious.
Yeah, don't
read
drive
that one
with windows closed. That's stupid. Tell me that's stupid. Am I wrong for looking at people and saying, what the hell's wrong with you for driving around by yourself, not an Uber driver, but by yourself with a mask on? Like, the mask is to
hands
protect.
at 10 and 2.
I'm sorry, but the mask it was made or was instituted or mandated to protect you from passing COVID, not from getting it. It had nothing to do with you getting it. It has to do with passing, right?
It's so convoluted now. It's hard to really sort it out. But I would say that I thought of this. What would my kids say to that? The poor soul that's still wearing a mask to drive solo in the car. And I think they would say something like, Dad, that's so April of 2020.
Ooh.
I mean, that's 2 years old now. I mean, if you haven't made it,
I feel like there's a lot of information that's came out since then to say, you'll be all right.
Right.
You never know, man. COVID could be sitting in the right
the passenger
seat right next to you, man.
You better fog your car when you get home.
What are the other comments? I'm sorry. We gotta make sure we get through the comments because I felt bad about last week not having to go through the comments.
No, we had some good.
Patricia's spot on too. I've seen a ton of people,
right?
Yes, yo.
Well, think about what the effect is. Think about how much it's gone up since this new mask mandate got reapplied. So you people take the ball and run with it, right?
It doesn't take much. It just takes Don Lemon and his anger for folks who aren't vaccinated because we should not be allowed. He must love New York City. Like, if you're not vaccinated, then you should not be allowed to go anywhere. You should not be allowed to congregate with society.
Shout out to Kayla. Kayla, I worked with Kayla back in the day at Best Buy when I was in college.
Oh, you worked at Best Buy?
I did work at Best Buy.
Blockbuster, yo.
Nah, I was the man at Best Buy.
My wife was pregnant, had our second child in late October of 2021. And we're both not vaccinated, and we talked about that frequently about Kayla's question there.
That is a good question.
Pregnant women getting vaccinated.
What's the question?
Pregnant women getting vaccinated?
I was going to bring up one of the.
Is that sketchy as
It's
fuck? Because I feel like it's sketchy as fuck.
I will put it this way. To my knowledge, and I believe this is factually completely accurate, there are no studies on pregnant women with these vaccines.
Right.
So
it's in your hands. You take it. It's up to you. Because again, I can ask the county, hey, can you give us the statistics on this information here? And I guarantee they won't respond.
Well,
which is
anytime
ridiculous.
They're going to give you money
you gotta fucking
to put something in your body.
Listen, into your bloodstream, not just into your body, but into your bloodstream.
I've been on J Street before.
Oh, yeah?
Well, what about the infertility
I lived on
side
Dewey.
of things? Like, we could ask so many questions about these vaccines because there's some women there's women I know personally that are now, missing periods and they're no longer.
But remember, the vaccine doesn't travel. That blows my mind that they can tell you that the jab doesn't travel from your arm. So there's no reason for anyone to be concerned about, procreative.
So that's if that's
organs.
what someone said, and I haven't heard that exact excuse, but I can tell you if that's what they said, that's very misleading because what happens is the spike protein that your body produces as a result of getting the vaccine travels in your bloodstream. So So is the little pile of gunk that they ejected into your arm, does that move? Maybe not, but does this cause a systemic reaction? Has anyone ever gotten a fever as a result of the vaccine? You better believe it. And a fever is a systemic reaction. So there's absolutely
systemic racism.
I was going to say, you keep saying this word systemic.
Yeah. I can't laugh at that.
Brockport College has taught me that means something.
Yeah, I bet it did. What other comments did we miss there? Before we let Austin out, Austin, I'm keeping you here.
Hold on,
I was going to say cell phones and boosters. That's right.
Cell phones and boosters, 5G. Zeta will be the final variant of COVID, the stigmata. Eyes, ears, bleed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on.
Maybe. No, we're good. That was it, right? The lab monkeys. That's kind of racist.
Yeah, I really.
She thought they were cats.
Right.
She stuck her hand in there and then touched her
benefit
eye.
of the doubt. It was a furry cat with opposable thumbs.
Yeah.
Stupid women.
That's what I call my children too.
Jinx.
All right.
Jinxie cat.
Is there anything you want to lay on us before you end the conversation, which was fantastic? I really appreciate you coming on.
Another one of these good guests, great, amazing guests, and we needed you on this show.
Yeah, because we've been talking hot shit.
We be killing COVID, and you just made us feel so much smarter than these motherfuckers that be coming at us every day.
Talking hot shit.
Word.
I would just say thanks for having me on. It was very enjoyable. It's nice to meet you all. I hope to see you again soon. And
not with COVID.
I think I would just say this, that you as an individual person should have, in my opinion, a healthy skepticism about everything, every aspect of your life. And I'm not saying be a cynic. I'm not saying be a hater. Yeah. I'm saying have a healthy skepticism and take into consideration the risk-benefit analysis of everything that you do. And if somebody tells you to do it because I'm going to punish you if you don't, to me, that is cause for me to pause and think what's really going on here. If someone's giving me $50 to stick something in my child, aside from the obvious and absolutely troubling medical ethics issues going on there, I think that it should make someone to say why. It should make someone, should turn on your skepticism meter very high. And that's just what I would ask people to do. And if people listen, this is the last thing I'll say. If you listen to this and you say, oh, that guy Baker, he doesn't know what, he's full of it. I don't believe he said this wasn't quite correct. This wasn't quite correct. That wasn't quite correct. You know what I say to someone who's really honestly thinking that? Now you're using your head, Al. But what I want you to do is offer that same courtesy to Anthony Fauci and to all the other people, all the talking heads that tell you safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. Doesn't matter who you are, good for everybody. There are very few treatments in medicine, very few, that are good for everybody. And there's not good reason, in my opinion, to think that this one necessarily is. It's not a bad thing. It's a thing. And you've got to make that decision. So if you think I'm full of it, good for you. You're using your head. Assume they're full of it until they prove otherwise as well. That's all I would say.
That's
Keep
good.
that same energy.
I would have said something different.
Keep that same energy with Dr. Three Mask Fauci.
And your boy Bello.
Oh. We didn't even get on him today.
No, we didn't.
We let.
That's
him
why
go.
we're gonna end it right now because I wanted to see your face like, oh,
Oh my god.
oh. You seem like you love
Dr.
him.
Mendoza, come to my office.
Oh my god.
We need to talk.
Austin, play that funky music. Thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. Oh, in case anyone comes in with COVID symptoms, right? And their name happens to be Kanye West or John Leguizamo, let them know I'm trying to get a hold of them. Trying to get him on the show.
Okay. Fair enough.
Austin, hit that funky music.